Tá bem? Ok, muito boa tarde. Olá. My name is Oren Sagiv. I'm an architect and a curator. I'm by far the least educated of the other speakers here. I'm more of a practitioner. But actually today I'm going to, first of all, I'd like to thank a lot, to thank Paolo for inviting me. This is the first time I've been living in Porto for more than 2 years, and this is the first time I'm invited to show some of my work here. So it's exciting, and it makes me feel even more at home here. And secondly, this is actually the first time I'm talking about this project that me, together with my colleagues, did as the representation for Israel for the 2018 Venice Architecture Biennial. The project is called In the Status Quo, Structure of Negotiations. And in a way, I think Inês gave me, it was a great introduction for what you're going to see now, because in a way this could be going deep into one example of trying to look at some places, at some spaces, at some programs, and make some kind of research that uses a lot of that needs some to use the capacity of imagination in order to make something coherent out of it. So it might be regarded as some kind of going deep into a project. After Inês explained maybe somewhat a methodology of doing such things. And I did this project together with Ifat Finkelman and Deborah Pintov-Deda, architects, and Tanya Cohen-Uzieli, who's a curator and an archaeologist. And I think I should give you some kind of, at the beginning, the background, the starting point, because in Israel you have, to represent Israel for the biennial, you have an open call. Everybody who has some kind of qualifications, architects, architectural researchers, curators can apply. And I think here it's a little bit different, the mechanism to represent. It's invited, yeah, it's invited competition. There, anyone can send a proposal, and it's kind of for architects, for the milieu, it's a kind of a seasonal sport. At some point over the year, people asking each other, are you going to submit? Are you going to propose? And somewhere in 2017, I think we, Ifat and Deborah are colleagues of mine. We all teach, we're all professors in the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem. And we decided that we are old enough, stupid enough, I don't know, to try and make a proposal. And it is a little bit loaded, this thing, because I remember this first meeting, we're sitting there and we think, okay, what is our idea? And in the political climate that Israel is in lately, and it was even more so a couple of those 3 years ago, it is a big question. How do you represent the country? And how could you do something that is, first of all, has a chance of getting it, that it's not going to be, and on the one hand, on the other hand, it's not just showing achievement, you know, it can have some kind of a critical hinge. So that was a big question. What is interesting for the world, for a world, the world view that we can show about architecture in the region? And very quickly, when we're talking about that, we said, okay, we are living in the region, which is the cradle of monotheistic religions, after all. I mean, this is something big. And okay, so we said architecture of sacred places, of holy places. That was some kind of a starting point, a point of departure for what I'm going to show you. And we kind of sketched something and we wrote something, we sent it, and we got shortlisted for the second stage. And then we have to understand what does it mean, because architecture of sacred spaces in Israel, Palestine, the Holy Land, Terra Santa, you have dozens of extremely important, significant holy places. And through the years, being the cradle of the three monotheistic religions, you have a lot of contested holy places, places that are sacred for both Jews, Muslims, Christians, and throughout the years, people have been fighting about that. And there's another point here that we as secular, liberal architects have a very peculiar or very specific feeling about those places. We are, in many ways, we look at those extreme, unbelievable monuments, and on the one hand, we are familiar with them. These are places that we used to go when we were kids. We used to go on the weekends. We used to go and we know them. We grew up next to these places. On the other hand, we are very, very alienated from them. We know them, but at the same time, we are almost opposed to them. Yeah, I mean, for us, there are those places where those fanatics start their holy wars, right? They fight over territory. This is, in a way, look at the proximity between the Wailing Wall and the Temple Mount and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Those places are the most explosive places in the world. And on the other hand, as architects, as people that are really trained and interested to think about space and program and activities, there's another thing. We are muted a little bit in our profession when we look at these places. They are, in a way, beyond our way of thinking about, of being critical or even imagining an intervention. There's nothing really that we are at awe from these places. If you think about the interior of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, for example, those places are a little bit transcending our ways of thinking about them as architects. So we were very intrigued by the subject matter we have chosen, because I personally always think that if I want to create an exhibition, I want to go to, or even if I want to design a new course for the university, I always think about something that on the one hand I have some kind of a intuition about, but on the other hand I know nothing about, because that's the way to create, to come on an interesting journey. And I think when Paulo called me and told me about Expedição and this space and this event of talking about these different journeys and different expeditions of research, for me, I thought this is a great thing to show, although it's not really we discussed it, it's not really the things I usually talk about. I usually talk about my practices as installation architecture and urban interventions. But this project has a significance for me because it started as a collecting material and knowledge to devise an exhibition that you can do, but it ended up, personally, and I think for my colleagues also, it's something much bigger than that. We understood something. We understood something that we didn't know before. And this something I will try to convey to you in the 25 minutes perhaps I have left. I'll have to talk fast. So maybe I have to correct myself. I'm not going to talk about to present the exhibition. I'm going to present what was the exhibition about, because I think this is the most important thing. I'm not even going to talk too much about the content of the exhibition. It's more about the principle behind it. Okay, so architecture of holy places, of sacred places, of extremely sacred places, the most sacred places on the one hand. On the other hand, what do we as architects have to say about it? how do we turn it into, where is the hinge? How are we tackling this issue? And we started our own expeditions. Every Saturday, we had a month to give the second stage, like to really give the proposal, and then you do a committee. Yeah? And every weekend we would go and explore those sacred places in Jerusalem, in Bethlehem, Belém, in the Galilee, in the desert, in the south, different places of extreme importance, and most of them in conflict, because they are sacred for different communities, different sects, different religions, and they were always very, very complicated. And one day, and it's actually that particular day I found that picture, not so far from the Jaffa Gate into the entrance to the Holy City, more or less in my back, there's a small church called the Church of Christ. And Tanya, one of my colleagues for this project, heard a rumor that they have in their courtyard, they have some kind of a museum and they have architectural models there that we should go and see, because we didn't know much. And we went there to that museum. It's kind of a makeshift museum, and we found this thing, that this very large wooden model, and we started to read what it was in there and investigate what it was. They let us fiddle with it, and the model is you can dismantle it. It's this old wooden model that is showing the Holy Sepulchre, depicting the Holy Sepulchre, in a scale of 1 to 93, if I'm not mistaken. We checked that. And it's completely, you can dismantle it and look it inside. And what is that model? That model, when we investigated it, that was, it's a model that was commissioned right after the end of the Crimea War by the Turkish governor of Jerusalem and the area. It was commissioned to Konrad Schick. And who is Konrad Schick? Konrad Schick was a German archaeologist that lived in Jerusalem at the time, and he was making his living fixing cuckoo clocks. You say cuckoo clocks? He was a master carpenter and really knew about mechanisms and apparatus. And he was the perfect person. He was a scholar also. And later, by the way, he became an autodidact architect that created some important buildings in Jerusalem in the late 19th century. And he was commissioned to create a model after the Berlin Accords at the end of the Crimea War that shows how the exact division of the different sects, the use of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Because in the Holy Sepulchre you have 6 main different churches, different communities that are in constant fighting. I'm not sure most of you know that, but the Crimea War, which was in a way the First World War, with about 1 million casualties, it was going on for more than 3 years, started officially because of this fight of the right to use spaces and territories within the Holy Sepulchre between the Catholics and the Greek Orthodox. And that started the war between Russia, that defended the rights of the Greek Orthodox, and England, France, and the Ottomans that were in charge. So the governor needed to show the Sultan in Constantinople how he is in control of that thing. And the only way he could do it is with this 3-dimensional model that explaining the so-called status quo. And the status quo is actually what's written in that Berlin Accord, the status quo ante bellum, yeah, the things that used to be before the war the groups will have to continue to use it as it was before the war. And then, with that model and with that story, we found at once two things. We found this critical hinge that we're going to look at. We're going to look at this unique mechanism called the status quo of the holy places, and what we can do as architects to deal with this issue, with this mechanism. We can continue exactly what Conrad Schick did with this model. We can examine this principle that not a lot of people have some in Israel, some people have some vague knowledge about this, but this principle we can convey in a popular way, and we can explain it with architectural media, because architectural media, we think much better than text, can explain complex situations, complex conditions. And what is the status quo? The status quo, first of all, is a general name for a myriad of protocols, of ad hoc protocols of how to use sacred places that are being used by conflicting communities. And the status quo, a few important things to say about the status quo. First of all, it's changing from one holy place to another. Every holy place that is contested, that have groups that is about to explode with this kind of violence between the contested communities, has its own status quo. Another thing to know is that status quo is not just about worship rights or even territory. The status quo of those places is very, very meticulous and very, very detailed protocol that covers every aspect of the use of the modus operandi of a place. Yes, it's about the language to use. It's about the times. It's about what step one community can step on the way to a specific prayer. It's about maintenance of each area. It's about the cleaning rights of each area. It's extremely elaborate protocols. Another extremely interesting thing that we found out about the status quo is that it completely defies, not defies, it transcends what we consider to be our familiar political understanding. I mean, the status quo of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is with us since the mid 19th century, so a little bit less than 200 years. But in this 200 years, it's the Ottomans who initiated it. Since then, in 1917, it was the British Empire that took over the site. After that, the Jordanian state, and after that, starting in 1967, it was the Israelis. All those governments are respecting the status quo. And that's true for every other place. Status quo, in a way, is a parallel political system that is used for peacemaking. Another very interesting fact about the status quo is that it is not recorded. It is not written. Every documentation, like you see here in the Cast report from 1929, yes, or the Schick model you saw before, was always made by the sovereign, was always made by the government, by the ruling government at the time. The parties themselves never take any record of the status quo. And why is that? It's very clear, because when you have this kind of ongoing negotiation and agreements, of course there are groups that are, some groups are getting more and some groups are getting less, right? They are inferior, not everybody has these equal rights. But once it's not stated, once it's not becoming laws, there's no reason still to fight, because there's always, maybe tomorrow you can negotiate for more. So it's this meantime situation. Everything is kept in this meantime position. I will give you some very quick examples. You see, this is the plaza. This is the square in front of the entrance for the Holy Sepulchre, and the right and the square is common to all sects. But the Catholics have the right to clean the square, the plaza, and the Greek Orthodox have the right to clean those stairs that you see where this lady is now sitting. But what is this here? Is this a part of the plaza, or is this a part of the stairs? I mean, we can vote on that, but this is not. It's not funny, because in the beginning of the 20th century, thousands of people died in those fights because one Greek Orthodox had the nerve to clean that part, and it's not a joke. This you see this the ladder that you see here. Those windows, the facade, are maintained by the Catholics, and if I'm not mistaken, this frieze is belonging to the Greek Orthodox. And it says that somewhere in the 18th century, more than 250 years ago, an Armenian person put the ladder there for whoever knows. It was 250 years ago, nobody remembers, but it cannot be moved. So this ladder is staying there in order to keep the status quo. After 1967, the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, Hebron was conquered by the Israeli troops. And the place was opened for prayers of Jews and stayed for also for the use of Muslims. And for many years, Muslims and Jews used it together, with every now and then some clashes, some violent clashes. But in 1994, if I'm not mistaken, there was a massacre by extremist nationalist Jew that massacred 29 Muslim prayers there, just shot them. And then the place was closed, and it was an Israeli government committee that decided about the future of that place. And the status quo that they decided is very interesting. The place is more or less divided by half. It's really 49, 51%, something like that. For the use of Muslims, Muslims use one half of it as a mosque. The Jews use another half of it as a synagogue. But for 10 days per each religion, totally 20 days that are not consecutive, that are spread around the years, it is becoming the whole place for special Muslim and Jewish holidays. It becomes the whole place one group has the right for the whole place for just 24 hours. And the interchange from a mosque into a synagogue and vice versa has to happen overnight. And what we did, I have it here, one remain from the Venice Biennial. We did two things in the exhibition. First of all, I had a teacher once when he said, you don't know what to do, so draw. You know, like a professor of architecture, one of those old ones, you know. He said, if you don't know what to do, draw. So we drew. We drew the plan of the place as it looks when it is the full place. It's called the Muslim exception. How it looks, you see the remains of the Jewish artifacts here on the one side, and on the other hand, on the other side, it's an exact superimposition of the place when it is used as a synagogue for the whole place. And I would like to show you now, if I manage, oops, I'll take this. I'll try to show you a piece of a video artwork done by an Israeli artist that we also showed. It is only 4 minutes. It's a clip of 4 minutes long, that shows. Let's see now. Okay. It's not. Can we have a sound? This this is showing the transformation from a synagogue into a mosque. They have to do it overnight, and you see, it just gives you some kind of an idea. And it's all done by the patronage of the Israeli army. They are the guardians of the status quo, of course. Exactly. Yes. Yes. I've seen this before. It's done by an Israeli video artist named Nira Pereg, and it was done in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And this is an amazing moment because for a couple of minutes it's empty. It doesn't belong to any religion. Yes, there's a moment there that it's suspended without anything. And the way she shows this, the installation is, to some of you have seen it, is that on one side it shows the exact reversal of that, how the Muslims are cleaning up and preparing for the Jews to enter, and it's synchronized. But you can see either side each time. So you have to turn your back from one to another. Yeah, I think she also used a cinematographer to do this specific side. Yes. We have visited there. In the Jewish exception, we could go there and visit the whole place as a group. Okay, the next site I want to talk about, and I wanted to start with what you see. It's just supposed to be a live streaming camera and I wanted to start with the condition right now. So, but this is how it looks, not right now, but probably a couple of hours ago. Yeah. I don't know if I can, but this is the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall Plaza, and that was another case study which we called Project. And this is how it looks now, or not exactly now, but a couple of hours ago. I'm talking about the plaza in front of this wall, of the Western Wall. This is the Al-Aqsa, and the Temple Mount is here, and the mosques, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Omar Mosque. And this wall is considered to be, by Jewish tradition, the only remains of the original structure of the temple, of the Jewish temple, which is, and it's the most sacred site for Jews. And but if I'll go to my presentation, this is how it looks again today, and it not always looked like that. This is how it looked before June, 10th of June.
Can I ask you to try to wrap up in 5 minutes or so?
Okay. So this is how it looked in the fourth day, until the fourth day of the 67 war, of the 6 days war. It was really just this 4 meters wide plaza in front of the wall. It was at 120 square meter, while on the fourth day of the war, this plan was drawn by a very famous Israeli architect of the Zionistic movement, and that's a demolition plan of the Mughrabi quarter that used to be there in order to make way to the people that are going to come. This was the demolition, and this is the new plaza, how it looked a couple of days afterwards. And then, that's why we call it a project. That's why a tabula rasa started there. And since then, since 1967 till today, there is a fight over the shape and mostly over the program of that plaza. And if we looked before about the conflict between Muslims and Jews, and before that between different communities within the Christian religion, now we're looking about the conflict within the Jewish, the different communities, different currents within the Jewish religion. Because first of all, is this going to be the most important national civil square, civilian square for civil life, or is it going to be the most sacred synagogue there is in the country? This is the first conflict, or the first dilemma, or the first polemic here. And then, how is it going to be according to Orthodox rule, according to Reform rule, according to conservative, all these different, each member of a community try to push their own ideas, and the architects starting to reacting to that place. And what we did is we started this research of these different studies, different ideas, some of them by very well-known architects, about how to treat that plaza. Even Isamu Noguchi had a proposal for that place that was commissioned by the Ministry of Religion. The Israeli Ministry of Religion approached Noguchi to give this in the 70s. This program by Moshe Safdie was actually approved by all the instances, but then there was this public pressure to stop it, and it never happened. And Super Studio in the 80s, and an example from 1991. I think something, a video is starting in the background.
One of the videos.
Yeah. Woof. Okay, a suggestion by some nationalist Jewish movement to build the temple again, for example, but they don't want to build it on the Temple Mount, so they do it here on the site of the, and different things. The most recent serious proposal by Michael Arad, actually commissioned by Netanyahu's government, to make an end to this constant fight between the liberals, the women that also want to use it, and the Orthodox not allowing anyone else to use it, not according to Orthodox rule. But if we would have seen that camera working, we knew that it is not true, because one moment it's empty, one moment it's a synagogue, another moment you bring all those plastic chairs and some soldiers do something, they're girls and boys together, and it's very undecisive. At the end, the status quo, this does not have a status quo, but it's exactly the same logic. It's too big on architects to take a stand. it stayed as it is. It stayed completely empty as it was in the fourth day of the 6 Days War. What we did is we did model everything, and we gathered all the information, and we presented 12 selected projects to the public. Thank you.